Today we're talking about presentation managers. Now, presentation managers, let me pull up our little map to show you guys where they live in the life cycle of stuff. And we'll talk about that. So let me get that going. Confluence. We'll go to app developers. And we'll go down here to project architecture. Okay, we're starting to get out into our green layer here. So this is the interface and adapter layer. And so presentation managers are right here in this green layer. So the green layer is called interface adapters. And by its name, you can start to think, all right, this is where we do interfacing and adapting between our deeper code and our frameworks. This is kind of the communication layer, the adapter layer between our frameworks and our deep code. And that's essentially what a presentation manager is doing. You'll notice that a presentation manager, it's notified when an entity changes. So you guys have dealt a little bit with entities, and you'll know that our entities are built with an observer pattern. And so that means that presentation managers are observing an entity. So when they're created, they add themselves as an observer to one or more entities. And then they're sitting over here waiting for changes to happen. So they'll be notified, they'll be pinged whenever one or the entity that they're observing, whenever that changes. And then that presentation manager, their job is to review the changes, to look at the state of the entities and decide if a change needs to be sent out to a view here. If it does, it typically creates what's called a view model. So you'll see a lot. We call these PMs and we call these VMs. So you'll see that a lot, PM and a VM. A view model is simply an immutable object. It's an interface, I should say. It's not an object, it's an interface. The point of this view model is to make the view as dumb as possible. That's our goal. That's the whole point of this thing right here. We want these views, and the view again is like React or Babylon are our two main views that we're going to be talking about. This is what is being seen by the user, by the actor. You can see the user sees React and they see Babylon. The view model is essentially the state that should be shown to the user. That's all it is. The presentation manager tries to do as much heavy lifting as it can to distill it down. So if there's some text to be displayed to the user, the presentation manager takes care of figuring out what text to display and then sticking that into a view model, and that gets sent off through a callback to a view. All right. Hopefully that tells you where we are in our outputs. Some just high level things to note. Notice there's no inputs going to the presentation manager from the user. This is all output. The flow of information is going this way, all the way out. All right. Any questions so far? All right, so we will jump in and let's pick a card. Let's get into our... Nope, this is the wrong one. Let's see, is this it? Okay, let's go to Jira. We're going to go to Hotspot. And we're going to look at our active sprint. And let's look at a PM scene object. That's kind of a hard one. We're going to try to pick a simple one. Consume pick challenge. Let's see. You know what we're going to do? This app mode. This is a super easy one. This is almost trivial, but we're going to do this one. I'm going to pull this over here. And I'm going to assign this one to me. And I'm going to create a branch. We're going to make it from develop, and it's going to be a feature branch. Oh, is our branch not building? Oh, well, I'm getting distracted. Never mind. We're going to go ahead and create this. Hotspot, great. All right, I'm gonna just copy this and jump over here to hotspot, get our code up, and we're gonna do a git pull, and then we'll paste in that command, and we got that. Just before we get going, I want to make sure our pipeline is not broken. It's paused. Okay, that's fine. Wait, am I in the right bucket? Hotspot, good. All right, I just saw in that when I was creating that pull request, there was a little exclamation point, which sometimes tells us things were broken, but it's not. All right, so let's jump back to this guy. This PM will just monitor the app mode and updates the view when it changes. So the app mode, so we're going to call this thing app mode PM, and you can see it's app mode presentation manager. I'm going to skip this step for right now. We'll talk about why we extend the presentation manager in a refactor. So we'll go ahead and just build this thing straight as a class. So PMs, presentation managers, I think they're always classes because they're an observer. So they're created. Typically, they're created by the view that needs them. So that's another interesting thing to note about presentation managers is they're not instantiated by main or by, they're not instantiated by main. They are instantiated by whatever view needs them. So that means they can come and go. They're not alive the whole time. They can be destroyed throughout. They can be created during runtime, in the middle of our runtime. So they come and they go. So we're going to create this app mode, and I'll show you what it's going to watch. So let's come over here. This PM is going to be watching this property in our app state. So we have our app state as an entity. Maybe you guys have run into this. It's our basic. It describes the state of the app. And in the app state, we have a mode. And that mode is either playing or review. It's an enum. And so this presentation manager is super simple. It's going to become an observer of the app state. And every time this mode changes, it's going to notify the view via a callback of the new mode. All right? So that's what we're going to do. All right. Pretty simple, straightforward. This is an easy one. So this goes in interface adapters, presentation managers, and we're just going to call this app mode PM .test or no .ts. And then right away, we are good high quality programmers around here, so we make an app mode .test.ts. Okay. So let's go ahead and just make our class. Export class app mode PM. We're just going to do that. And let's just go ahead and build our constructor. Is going to be entities. We almost always take in our entities. Entity context. And then you're going to see this pattern all the time. You'll see this in all the other hotspot, in all the other PMs. The constructor. Where's our constructor? They almost always take in the entity context and then this callback function. We'll keep it. So we're going to take in a callback function here. We're going to take in this callback function and we're going to call this thing update view. And this is just a callback function that doesn't return anything. So what this does, well, actually we'll talk through it when we build our test. Let's go ahead and build our test now. So we're going to come in here. We're going to do, let me get these things side by side. And we'll go ahead and hide the sidebar. We'll close down these guys. All right, so we're going to jump into our test and just kind of get this guy stubbed in. So we start with our usual make test rig. And this is the function. And we're going to do make our entities. All right, pretty standard. We're going to go ahead and our view, constant view, is going to be a jest function. And then let's go ahead and make our PM and we'll talk about it. Constant PM equals new app mode PM. And we need our entities and our view. Okay, actually, I'm going to rename this to view callback. I'm going to rename this to update view. So this kind of gives you an idea of how this is going to be used in the real world, right? What we're going to see out there is some view. We don't know what that is. This could be a Babylon view script. This could be a React script. This script wants to know, this view component wants to know when the app mode changes. And when it does, the PM will call this update view callback function. All right? So that's what we're doing. We're making a fake view here with our jest function, a fake update view callback. And we're passing that in to our entities and into our app mode, and it's going to get called back when things change. Hopefully, that's what we're going to build. So let's return. We're going to need all these guys. We're going to spread the entities. We're going to send back our update view callback and our PM. All right. So let's make our describe block here. So this is called an app mode presentation manager. And the first thing we're going to do is well, I'm going to look at the card real quick. So usually, like when we talk about tests, we'll look at these guys. It monitors and updates when it changes, when the app mode changes. So we're going to say it updates the view when the app mode changes. All right. Oops, got something in here. What is all this junk? Should be an arrow function. All right, so we're going to do our make test rig here. All right, and we're going to go ahead and get our update view. And we're going to get, I spelled our entities wrong. Let me spell this right while we're here. All right, and we're going to get our app state. All right, so we need to know, I'm going to poke around just real quick and look at our app state and try to figure out what we start in. And because we need to trigger a change. So we are going to just poke around here in app mode, and we're going to look for this mode down here. And we can see it starts out in plain. So we're going to go ahead and do sometimes you can imagine this could change over time. Somebody could go along and they could say, let's start the app mode somewhere else. So this is an assumption we're making, is that the app mode starts in plain. So if we're going to make an assumption, let's test for it. So I'm going to go ahead and do an expect app state dot app, I think it's just mode, to equal this, and we need to bring that in. Now, I got to get my test running. Let's get some tests running down here. npm test. And let me grab this name, and we'll just focus right on this one. All right, does that pass? We should expect that to pass. It did. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to say app state dot mode equals app mode dot review. And we expect we expect update view to be called. Right? Now that's probably going to fail because nothing's happening. All right, so let's do a quick review what we're doing here. What we're doing is we know we're going to change the app state mode. And so this test just checks to make sure that we actually did change it. So we're making an assumption that it starts in app mode plain, and so then we're going to set it to review. If we just set this straight to playing or we didn't change it, it wouldn't call anyways. So this is just going to set us up to make sure that we're doing a good test. We're going to, something out there, some use case, some trigger has changed the app state mode. And this view needs to be updated. This view needs to be told, hey, the app state mode has changed. Let's call it. So that's what we're testing for. All right, let's get that going over here. We got to get this test to pass. Okay, so here's what I know needs to happen. We need to add this PM, as an observer to app state. So we're going to do that. So we're going to do entities.appstate.addObserver. And we need a function. We need to do an observer. So let's do a little function here called do check for update. And that's going to equal this, that, this. It's an arrow function. And that's what we're going to subscribe with. So, we need a this. All right, so now you guys are starting to see, hopefully, how the observer pattern for an entity works outside of the entity. So you can see we have an entity that is the app state. It has been built with that observer pattern. So we're going to add an observer of this function. So now anytime app state changes, this is going to be called. Okay? And now we've done that. So now what we can do is we're just going to let's go ahead and we're going to do this as a private. A little trick we can do. What that does is it allows us to just immediately capture this .update view. Now let me spread that out a little bit more. We could do it this way. Essentially, this thing up here needs to call this function. So we could do this. We could do private update view is void we describe it there, and we do this. Actually, let me put it after this. We do a this dot update view equals update view. We could do it this way, and then down here it's this dot update view. We call it. Now that should get this test to pass because something has changed. I'll save the privating of this for a refactor. We'll do that in a minute. Okay. But now, I want to point out something here. The update view, this app mode, there's a lot of things in this app state that can change, right? There's a lot of stuff going on in here, and in fact, we're gonna change something else. We're gonna change. Well, what we're gonna do is we want to make sure that, let's say, slide text changes, right? If we change the slide text, this presentation manager should be smart enough to know, all right, the mode didn't change, the slide text changed, something else changed. So this PM should only update the view when the app mode changes. So we need to check for that. So let's go ahead and write a test for that. So it only updates the view when the mode changes in the app state. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of take this guy. We're going to go ahead and set the mode to something we know. Then we're going to update view clear, mock clear. All right, so this right here is our view callback. We went ahead and just set this to something. Now, actually, let's not even do that. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll set it to something. No, we don't need to do this, actually. Let's just take that out. Let's go ahead and mock clear our update view just to make sure nothing has happened to it. Nothing has called it. Now, we're going to do app state dot, let's do slide text equals hello world. Now, when that happens, our view should not get called, right? Because slide text has nothing to do with app mode. So we're just this player or this PM should be smart enough to realize, all right, something has changed, so we are getting called because the observer has notified. Something has changed in the app state, but it's nothing we care about. We don't care about the slide text. So what do we need to do to check that? We need to monitor our previous state. All right. All right. So how do we do that? What we need to do is we need to keep track of the previous state. So I'm going to go ahead and hold a private. And we're going to call it previous mode. And we're going to make it variable. So it's because we don't know the first time. We're going to say previous mode is, and it's going to be of type app mode. And we're going to do this check in here. And we're going to say if previous mode equals, okay, now we need to get our app state. We need to hold that. So let's put that over here. Let's do private app state is app state. And we're going to pull that out. This dot app state equals entities dot app state. Nope, not that. All right, so we're going to pull that out. And now we're going to say if app state, oops, bring this back in, app state dot mode, if the previous mode, which starts out undefined, is equal to the current mode, then we don't need to do anything. We just return. We're out of here. So we just drop out. Otherwise, we update the view and then we store this dot previous mode equals this dot app state mode. All right, does that make it pass? I kind of doubt if it will because we haven't set it yet. And so we're kind of running into problems with initialization. So just to get this one to pass, what I'm going to do is go ahead and initialize it like this. So this should work. I think that'll work now. No, it did not work. Oh, okay. No, I'm kind of surprised that didn't work. What happened? Updates the view. All right, so I kind of expect this one to pass. Let me hit save one more time. And let's see what happens. Does not, well, it's going. Oh, there it passed. All right. Sometimes my test gets a little behind. So, everybody follow that so far? Essentially, we're storing the previous mode, and we're just checking for changes in that mode. All right, I feel like okay, there we go. All right, so now I'm going to make this a little more generic because you can see I'm setting the slide text. What you'll find over time is now we've introduced kind of an implicit dependency on a slide text for this app mode PM. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense down the road. You're kind of like, so essentially what could happen down the road is somebody might delete this. We don't need slide text anymore. I don't know, something happens. And now suddenly this app mode test starts failing. And that's confusing. You're like, why is the app mode failing? All I did was change slide text. So there's another way to do this, and it's a little cleaner. Instead of doing that, you could do app state.notify. So the app state, we can go peek at it, since it extends the observable entity, it has a notify function on it. And so this just notifies, it kind of skips the whole checking if something changed, and it just notifies all the observers anyways. So if the app state notifies and nothing has changed from our previous mode, we shouldn't do anything. Doesn't matter to us why it notified, it just notified, and we're checking to make sure that the app mode hasn't changed. All right, moving on. One more thing we should do, we kind of run into this. We have this undefined beginning. We have a question mark up here. Okay, think about the cycle of life. A view is going to be turning on. We're going to be showing something. Some React component is going to become enabled. It's going to make this PM. we should initialize that view, right? We should set that view up to where the state is currently, because we don't know the next time the observer is going to change. We don't know when app state is going to change next, but the view is already up and running. So we need to kick this guy off and get it set up. So we're going to do another test. It initializes view. All right, so we're going to do this. This is pretty simple. And what we're going to do is we're just going to call our make test rig, and we're going to expect that our update view, this is our view callback to the view, has been called. What's the word? To be called. To be called. That's all we're checking for. So this is just to check to make sure that we initialize the view. And we're going to start getting some fails here. So let's go ahead and do this. So we're going to do, let me organize this a little bit. I'm going to move this down to here. We're going to just initialize our local properties, our private properties here. Set that up at our observer, and then we're just going to go ahead and do this. Check for update view. We needed this. So we're just going to kick this off. Now, just note, we're going to kick off our check for update view. It is going to pass this because our previous mode starts out undefined. And we know our app state mode, it doesn't have the option of being undefined. So this is going to pass. We're going to go ahead and update our view, and then we'll go ahead and set our previous mode. So that kind of kicks us into our mode, gets our statement, our state checkers all initialized. Everything is going to work great after that. All right. Okay, we're looking good. Let me check my card real quick. There is something missing, I can tell. I'm going to look at the card. When we do our update view, we're supposed to be returning our mode. Essentially, we're supposed to be telling the view, okay, the mode has changed, and this is the mode. This is the mode we're in now. So that the view can just take that mode and do whatever it needs to do with it. So let's do that. I'm going to make this a little more verbose, and then we'll change it up in refactor just to explain where the view model comes in, and then we'll deprecate the view model and I'll explain why. But let's go ahead. This is our typical pattern. If you look at other PMs in here, you're going to see this pattern. This is the PM. It's a class, and this is the VM, and it's an interface. You're going to see this all the time. Here's the VM, and here's the PM. All right, so we're going to do that same thing. We're going to come back here. We're going to export an interface called app mode VM, and we're going to do mode is app mode. All right, this is our view model. It's an interface that defines what an object will be made up of. Now we're going to extend. Actually, we should write a test first. Let's get back down to here. We're going to, let's come down here. We're going to do it returns the current mode when instantiated. All right, so what I mean by that is it's kind of like this test again. It's the instantiation, but this time we've already checked to make sure it's called. We're going to check. We expect the update view to be called with the view model. So let me go ahead and extend our, let me add this test in first. Here's what we expect to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and do this check again because I need to make an assumption about what the view model is. So we're going to do this. Now, what we expect is we also plan on this. We're going to be getting back our view model. So we're going to do a constant VM equals this our callback dot mock dot calls 0, 0. I'll get back to this in a second. But we're going to go ahead and cast this as this. All right, this is getting a little confusing. But let me talk through this. Then we expect vm.mode to equal app mode.playing. All right. Lot of fancy stuff going on here, but let's talk through it. We expect this update view to send the view mode back. So let me go ahead and just retype this. VM app mode VM. All right. Now, all right, so now we need to update the signature of this up here too. There we go. Now, down here, we need to do this. Okay, so what we're doing is we're saying the callback is not just a null a void function anymore. The callback to the view is going to pass the view model to the view. And that's in line with our map we were looking at here. You can see right here, the presentation manager creates the view model and sends it to the view. So that's what's going on. So we're expected, so this is failing at this point. But let's just go ahead and get it to work. Let's go ahead and get it to work, and then we'll write the test to verify that it's working. Mode is going to be this.appstate.mode. There we go. All right, now we're passing. So we've extended our callback to also take in the mode VM like this. App mode VM takes in mode, and now we're writing a test to make sure it's coming back that way. And this little bit of code here is a little bit funky. And you guys, this is a jest feature to take a look at. But essentially, because our update view callback, it's a jest function here. So we can use this mock.calls. And what this is jest keeps track of when this guy was called, when this update view was called, what was it passed? So the first array tells you the order. So this is the first call. The first index in the array of calls. The second one tells you the index of the parameter. So this is the view here. This one only has one parameter, the VM. If we were to have something else like comma, something else, dot number, you could get this value by getting the number 1 out of that. All right. Refer to the jest stuff for that. This is just straight up jest stuff. All right. Great. So we have the returns the current mode when instantiated. We're going to do it returns the updated mode when the mode changes. All right. So we're going to come down here. We're going to do this. We're going to do this test again. We're going to grab this guy. And we're going to go ahead and set app state dot mode equals app mode dot review. And now we expect this to be review. Now here's a little trick. It should fail. Let me hit save again one more time. It should fail because a little sneakiness going on in here. Notice we're getting the first callback. But we do know that the view is called back on instantiation. So the view is actually getting called twice. It's getting called when constructed. So up here in our make test rig, this is when it gets called the first time. And then it gets called again when we change the mode. And that's expected. So there's two ways we could do this. We could do this. We could get the first callback, or it's actually the second, index is 0. Now this one will pass because we know it's getting called twice. I feel like that could be a little confusing. It's a little sneaky. So what I like to do is I know my update view is getting instantiated. So instead I do update view.mock clear. And what that does is it clears out that view. It sets it back. And now when I call this mode, it is the first returned value because we cleared it out. So it is passing. This again is just fancy jest stuff. So review, you can review, this is all, if you guys have questions on this, check out this is really focused on the power of this jest function and the different things you can do with that. All right. Last thing we need to do. We have added ourselves as an observer to the entity. That means we have a reference. There's a reference to this particular script in the observer. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, presentation managers, they come and they go. We don't know how many times, we don't know how many views are going to use this. And that view can turn on and then go away. Perhaps it's a temporary dialogue that's using this mode. And that dialogue shows up and then it goes away. So we need to make sure that we can remove ourselves as an observer from the entity so that we're no longer observing the entity when we get shut down. So the way we typically do this is we add a function called dispose. And I'll make that an arrow function. So this is pretty common practice. We do a dispose. And so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say it can be. And so what that looks like is this. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to set it up like this. Then we're going to do, we got to grab our PM now. We're going to dispose our PM. Dispose. Now, what we should expect is it doesn't matter if we set this anymore. I'm going to set this a few times. App mode review, app mode plain. We're just going to do this a bunch of times. This, because we have been disposed and we cleared out our initialization, we expect update view, update not to be called. All right, do you guys follow that? So essentially, when this PM gets disposed, it should no longer be tracking whatever it is it's tracking. It needs to, well, we'll do it. It needs to entities. Well, actually, we can do this dot app state dot remove observer, this dot check for update. All right, that removes us from observing because we expect that when this guy's getting disposed, that means whatever was using it is going to be destroyed. And so this guy needs to go away. All right, any questions? Everybody tracking? Everybody feeling good about this? All right, great. I'm going to do some refactor now. So this PM is done. It's good. Let me pull up my card. Where is my card? Here we go. Pull this up. This is the PM that will monitor the app mode and updates it when it changes. Since it is, well, we'll get into the presentation manager next. And we'll talk about this app mode thing next. All right, but otherwise it's working. So now going back to this, let's just think about some refactors. I'm going to go ahead and close down my tests. I'm going to close down that. The first thing I notice is this interface only has one thing in it. It's only got one property. Now you could go two ways on this. You could leave it as is, and that's fine. That's adequate. And in fact, I'm going to refactor this, but I tend to regret this refactor more often than not. Because this one, I can't imagine more properties being added here. But if there were any chance that we would be adding more properties, I would leave it this way. But since this guy is literally just the app mode presentation manager, I'm pretty confident this is the only thing we're going to return. So instead of making a VM, let's just return this in our view model. In this, let's just return this and just get rid of this extra VM. Okay? It's fine, I think, in this case, because we're not returning anything else. Now, it just really simplifies life a little bit. Now, this is going to break tests, so we'll get into that. Oh, actually, we don't return an object. We just return this. There we go. So I believe this is okay in this example because this update view, this PM, I don't expect it to return anything else. Most of the time, though, you're going to expect your PMs to have more than one, or your VMs to have more than one thing. And if they have more than one thing, you're going to need a container for it. You're going to need an interface. And so that's where that VM comes in. So we're going to take that out. We're going to strip that down. Now our tests are going to fail. So let's bring those back up because we no longer have this. And instead, this is going to come back as the thing that we're returning is just the app mode. And so this is now app mode. Or actually, let's just call this mode. And this becomes this. Same with this. We'll just return this like this. So it does simplify that a little bit. All right, now that should pass. Oops, we got one problem right here. All right, let me see. One more time. I think my test just got behind. Okay, well, that's one little cleanup. Now, let's talk about an extension we could do. We have found we do this pattern all the time where we have an entity that we're observing and then we need to dispose and all that stuff. So we have made a way to just take off a little bit of that work by extending a presentation manager. So let me show you what that looks like. We can refactor this guy to extend a presentation manager. Now this is an import. It's coming from our app, our Vivette app thing, and it extends its presentation manager. And what it does is it just makes our life a little bit easier. So I'm going to just implement that. And you can see what we have to do is we need to change this to do update view. I'm going to take this out. And we have to refactor a little bit down here. I'm just going to do this real quick and we'll talk through what this actually means. Entities.appState. Now we can take this out. Okay, let me talk through. What this presentation manager does for us is it takes care of this line of code so we don't have to worry about subscribing, and it takes care of our dispose. It's all it does. It handles the subscription. Really, really simple. Just makes our life a little bit easier in the end. Okay, so you'll notice I deleted our dispose that was right here. And I deleted that observer, add observer, but all our tests are still passing. Okay, everything is still going on. Down here you can see we still do a dispose. And that's because those little details have been moved to the presentation manager part. So we don't have to deal with that. This is optional. If you guys don't want to do presentation managers, that's fine. There are times when you cannot use presentation managers. They only work when, first off, your entity, let's go to this definition. Wait, no, not that one. Let me go to our entity, our app state. It only works if it has extended the observable entity. So if your base entity is not an observable entity, then you cannot use this presentation manager. Another edge case, well, a case you'll run into regularly, is sometimes your PMs will follow more than one entity. They'll be following a bunch of entities and figuring out what to do. In that example, you cannot use this PM. You cannot extend a PM. It's just that hasn't been designed to do that. I want to extend it to do that, but I haven't gotten to that. All right, that's it. This PM is done. Great. If there's no questions, I think I might go ahead and roll into where we use this in React. Because I think we're getting really close to tying this whole thing up, right? You guys have seen all this kind of abstract code. But let me show you how we bring this into React. And I'm going to shoot from the hip on this. Okay. Let me go ahead and commit this while I have it and it's in a good state. All right, now, what you guys are going to see, we're going to now get out into the frameworks folder. This is our blue layer, way out. This is, you'll see we have Babylon, React, Sass, and ZSpace. You guys haven't dealt with ZSpace yet, but these are all frameworks, things that we push as far out. We want to have no dependencies on these. So I'm going to jump into React, and I'm going to show you how we hook a PM into our front end, into our React stuff. We use hooks. So hopefully you guys know hooks. React stuff, I'm not the strongest at React. I just don't do it very often. So we're going to work through this. I usually have to copy a hook over, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this thing. I'm going to do use app mode.ts. I name it similar to the PM we made. So our PM was called app mode. And we're going to do this thing called use app mode.pm. And I'll try to do this from scratch, but I typically have to reference another one. This is one I'm going to reference this on the side because I'm not very good at React. All right. So first off, export a function called use app mode. This is a typical hook. All right. Oh, we need a little thing. So this is a hook. We're building a hook. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up, let's see. So what this hook needs to do is, actually let's just talk through it on this side because it's using the same thing. You can see this is using the is authoring hook. This hook, all it does is it tells the front end, tells React if we are authoring or not. Are we authoring? Yes or no, true or false. So these are the common things you're going to see. You guys have probably dealt with the React context. And we'll talk about where this is coming from. But this is another typical, you can see this is being imported from React. It's a use context, and we're using the React context. This will be important in a second. We're also using another React thing called a use reference. And you can see imported from React. Again, if you guys have questions on these things, go to the React documentation. But this is actually the presentation manager. This is where we store our instantiation of the presentation manager. And then down here, we're using a state, another React thing. In this case, we're using the set author and is authoring. This is the Boolean. All right, so let's jump back over here and let's just go ahead and set up these things that we know we're going to need. So we're going to use that constant, use app context, and that's going to use context. And a lot of times it doesn't like that imports for me. I don't know why. It doesn't auto import the first time. So I'm going to just drop those in there, and we're going to use this app context. Not make app context. No. Back here. React, I think is it that? I think it's just, oh yeah, this is doing an export. That's fine. That'll work. Okay, so this is something you guys maybe have bumped into, this app context. Let me show you what that is real quick. That's in the root React folder. It's our React app context. And this is where we bring in a lot of our use cases. You guys have seen our use cases coming in here. And also key for this example, our entity context, the actual entity context you guys have seen and stuff, that also is held in here. It's added to this. So this is our context that React is using. All right, the next one, we're going to use a constant. I'm going to go ahead and write this out explicitly. Presentation, PRESEN manager. Now let's do PM. That's too awkward. PM. It's the PM, Presentation Manager. And we're going to use ref. Again, this is some tricky advanced React stuff that I'm not super confident in. But hopefully we'll work through this. And we're going to use this. The type of this is going to be our app mode PM. That's the thing we just made, right? And it's going to start out, So that is this type right here. We just made this, app mode PM. All right. Next thing we're going to pull in is a state constant. Now, we store what this guy is returning, mode.appmode. That's what our state is. And we'll kind of get into that in a second. But let's go ahead and just do this. So I have this use state snippet that helps me set this up. And we're going to call this app mode. M-O-D-E, and you can see it does set app mode. And we're just going to set this to an initial state dot playing. And so now what we've done, the key here is that this state we're storing is whatever the PM is returning in the app in the update view. So that's what we'll get to in a minute. Okay, so now we're getting set up here. And then down here, we're going to go ahead and just return our app mode. Come on. All right, so that's how that's going on. All right, now let's get into the heart of this guy. What we need to do is we're going to build out this use effect. And again, this is, I refer to this as React magic that I tend to not like, because it does a bunch of stuff that I don't know exactly what it's doing, but it's doing it. So this is where I kind of hate React, is these use effects, they're magic to me, and I don't like it when code is magic. But we're going to use it. We're going to do a use effect. Let me use my use effect snippet. Now, some things I know, and again, sketchy knowledge here. We want to be dependent on the app context. Now, the app context, this is coming in. The main thing we need to get is we need to get our entity context. We need to get this guy off of our app context, because we need that to construct our PM, right? We cannot make our PM until we have the entity context. So we're using this app context. Now, the catch here is on the first life cycle, this comes back as undefined. So we can't just code it. We can't just make our PM. We have to wait for the React context, for the app context to not be, you see it can come back as undefined. We have to make sure it's not undefined. So that's why we're dependent. This hook, this use effect, is watching the app context, and we're checking to see, we're going to do if, oops, that was wrong. We're going to do if app context. We're going to start with that one. If we have an app context, then we know, then it's not undefined. We know app context is not undefined. Then we can make our PM. So let's just write this out explicitly. Constant PM, app mode PM is going to equal new app mode PM entity app context dot entities. All right. Now we're still missing our view. We got to do this thing. All right. I'm going to spread this out. We're going to do this kind of verbosely a little bit. Let's just do this function updates view is going to equal this thing where we get updates view. This is our mode. This is This is going to be what we pass in right here. So that's where we're getting this. This descriptor is coming from right here. This is our callback function. So we get our update view, and this is going to be app mode. And what we're going to do in here is we're just going to use our hook. Set app mode to the mode. All right. So this is hooking into the hook. We're setting this callback, which is this right here. So this is what the PM is triggering when the mode changes. So let's pass that into here. Set app mode. There we go. So we're starting to close the loop. You can see, all right, we've got this set app mode. We're making our new PM. We now, because we're checking this, we know we have the app mode, the app context, and we know we have, so we can create it because we have our entity context. This makes the presentation manager and sends in, it injects our function callback right here to do update view. Whoops. That's not right. This should be update view. It does this update view. And which turns around and just sets our local state. That set state does some magic again. You know how hooks are. They update whenever they need to update. I'm not sure of that life cycle. But that's what's going on there. All right, there's a few problems that we've got at this point. One, we don't know how often this hook is going to be called. So just because we have app state or app context, we only want to call this once. We don't want to be making 100 PMs. So we need to have a flag in here that checks. All right, did we make a PM? I don't know. We need to check for that because we only want one PM. Also, we need to be able to dispose this PM. Remember over here in the PM, we wrote a way to dispose it because this hook at some point could go away. The container or the component that's using this hook could stop being used and it needs to be destroyed. So fortunately we can destroy by using the return because that is called, if you guys know the use effects, the return is called when this hook is being, essentially it's on the unmount call. If you guys remember the old school stuff, when this thing's going to be unmounted or whatever it's called, it calls a return. So again, referencing this. Now to dispose this, we need to have a reference. We need to be able to say, this. We need to be able to say this dot dispose, but we need to keep that. So that's why we use this reference. This use reference is just a handy little tool to store something. That's all it does. Is it's storing whatever you want in this hook. So we store our PM in this reference. Okay, so the way we do this is in here we do this PM.current is equal to this. All right, that's going to store it. That also conveniently gives us a check. So now we can check and PM.current equals undefined. Because PM, this reference, you can see up there in the types, it can be either the PM itself, the app mode PM, or it can be undefined. It starts out undefined. And so this is the double hook or the double check we're going to do. If we have app context, it's not undefined, but PM.current is undefined, we need to make a PM. From then on out, this will fail after we've made our PM. And then we can also use PM.current. That can be undefined. I don't know the edge case for this, but it can be. If it is, then it's okay. We don't have anything to dispose to begin with. But if it's not, we go ahead and dispose it. All right. That is a very complicated React magic hook going on, which is why I almost always copy a hook and put my stuff in there. But we know it works. This is how we bridge the gap between React and our domain. Now, I know we're going a little long, but let me go ahead and just close the door on this and show you this in real life. how we do this in the presentation manager. So let me get this thing started. We're going to start up our player, and let me just do a quick review to show you guys what I'm talking about here, where this particular hook is going to be used. We're going to jump in here to let me get to Confluence, and let me get to the Hotspot app, and let me get to our challenge we're working on. Hotspot features. Click on Hotspot. So the way this very mode is going to be used is it's going to help us figure out what to show here in the panel. So you're either going to be playing, you're going to be in two modes, one of two. You're either going to be playing, which means you're being asked to do something or something, you're interacting with the scene, or you're going to be in review. You have answered the question and you're getting feedback. So this sidebar is going to change what it displays. And that's going to be dependent on the mode that we just made the hook for. So let's jump back over to here, and we're just going to stub in something this is called slide content. And right now, this is what we're showing. Let's see. I'm just going to this isn't going to be such an easy refactor. I'm going to add some stuff in here. We're going to do push. I'm going to stub in a button. All right, this is going to be pretty dirty, but we're just going to say I'm just going to write the function write mode, and this is going to be really simple, and it's going to be something like, well, let's get it. So we're just gonna write up in here. We're gonna say mode is playing, mode is whatever. So just kind of a consoler in a way. So we're gonna use our hook now. We're gonna do constant. I'm just gonna say mode is equal to use app mode. So there we go. We've brought in our hook, and this is going to return the app mode. Now we're gonna do if mode is equal to app mode dot playing. We're going to say return p mode is playing. I'm sure there's better ways to do this. And then we're going to do else return mode is review. And then I'm going to do one more. Okay, so now we're going to do this quick little write mode. All right, now that should show us something. Let's see. Refresh this. There you go. Mode is playing. Now let's do a quick trigger in here. Let's do a button. And we're going to call this toggle mode. Now, this is also dirty, but we're just going to do this. Click. We're going to do some sort of function. And we're going to do toggle mode. And now, what we would typically do is this would call out to this would call out to a use case is what we would typically do. This is where use cases come in. So a few of you guys have come in here and you have wired up, edit hotspot title, cancel submit. This is where we're going to close that gap is the context. There would be one in here called toggle mode, but we don't really, that's not a button we're really going to hook up, but we're just going to do it now. So typically this would point to a use case, but we're just going to hard code it in here right now just to get this demo to work. I'm going to grab the context because I need to get a hold of the entities. So we're going to throw the context in here. Nope. Oh, come on. You're going to make it hard to get the context in here? React. You don't know the context. All right, well, we know that one. It is going to be this. We're going to discard all this, so don't worry about how dirty this is. Now we do if app context is undefined, we return because we can't do anything. Otherwise, we're going to do if app context. Oh, actually, what we can do is this. We can just kind of take this guy. We'll start with this one. We're going to do app context dot app state, no, dot entities. Falling apart. Dot app mode. No, app state dot mode. Jeez. Dirty. It's going to equal, we're going to just toggle it. App mode. No, don't do all that. M-O-D-E. App mode dot review. All right. Super ugly, but you can see what we're doing is we're just going to just toggle back and forth. That's all we're doing. All right. So just take a note. We're putting in a button and we're just going to toggle the mode. It's going to call this function. We're not changing our local state. We are changing the entity. We're out here changing the entity, which is going to trigger a whole cycle of events. Notifications, observers, states, all that stuff's going to do its thing. And it should update our PM, which updates our hook, which updates our state. So let's see if that works. So let's refresh this. And watch this work. Consume, toggle. Hey, look at that. It works. Update, plane, update, update, plane. Super simple. But I hope you guys see that is the entire circle of life. That's our cycle of life that you see, the entire thing. The dirty thing is this should point to an entity, to a use case. But other than that, you guys are starting to see how it's closed. You click a button. It triggers a use case. It changes an entity. Entities notify presentation managers. Presentation managers build up a view model. They notify their view. The view updates. That is the cycle of life. That is everything we do. The one thing that's missing is controllers, but we'll get to that in a little bit. All right. Any questions? That was a lot, but I think we actually can maybe skip the that's kind of the view part of stuff. That actually got covered the React side of things too, and hopefully that's enough for. I don't even know if we'll need to do views. We do the same thing inside of Babylon we'll start to work on this. And maybe, I think I will do a thing on Babylon because I know that's sketchy for all of us. Like, I don't know if there's a lot of expertise in Babylon, but you guys, I think you both know React, and so I think you probably see how it all works together now. All right. Questions? Yeah.
Same standard question at the end of every lecture. When will the video be posting? Because this was by far the most complex subject matter I think we've covered so far.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just want to make sure I understand the concept matters to be able to tackle a couple tickets in the near future.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. PMs start to get hard. I would say in order of complexity, entities are the easiest. Use cases generally are the second easiest. PMs are hard. And controllers are probably easy. Yeah, they're not as hard, but yeah, I will be posting this video. I will throw it onto the internet as soon as I get done, and it'll just take a few minutes to upload. So it'll be out there. I'll add it to that same playlist and just let you know when it's out there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, guys. Thanks for your time. If there's no other questions, we will shut this down, and that's it. I will add PMs to the board. You guys are more than welcome to start knocking them out, and we can go after it. So you guys should be fully enabled. You guys should feel fully enabled or empowered to do PMs, use cases, entities, serializers at this point. So go get them. All right.
Thanks, boss.
Okay. Thank you for your care for me.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. See you guys. Bye.